Giants fans, what is going on? We are back in studio. A rare off night. We don't do this too often. Although throughout the spring, me and Truth were together quite frequently, and we were doing a bi-weekly draft show. Now, we have a lot of time to worry about the draft. We are hoping, Giants fans, we are hoping this episode becomes so irrelevant that we can delete it off YouTube because we'll never have to discuss it again. We're talking about the quarterbacks. Mike and I connected over the weekend. And we said to ourselves, it might be best to get the conversation going. Start doing our homework a little bit on these quarterbacks. I know already there's guys that me and Truth like. There's guys that, the fans like. There's a lot of talk on Twitter. And when you're a team like the Giants, where there's a very good chance they're drafting a quarterback next year. We thought it's pretty important to get ahead of the curve here, not just do some show in February and discuss then. The quarterbacks in hindsight, me and Truth might be checking in periodically throughout the spring. Throughout the fall, and we'll give some updates on the quarterbacks. For now, we're going to give some early looks, early opinions, really what we want to see out of these quarterbacks as time goes on. Truth, let's get to the crux of this. We've come off to a lot of fans today. Talk about some of the tweets that we've just been seeing. A lot of people are thinking that we want Jones to fail. I know you don't want Jones to fail. Just go ahead. You don't want Jones to fail, right?
Oh, no, absolutely. Look, I've been a big supporter of Daniel Jones. And a lot of the comments today were, why are we talking about this so early? And it's just to familiarize everybody with who is out there right now. And right now we have 6 guys that we're going to talk about, and that can always change as we move forward and see which quarterback might be a good fit for the Giants if Daniel Jones does not succeed. And I'm hoping he does. I think he has the tools, and we'll talk about that too, you and I, about that. So again, I just see that the Giants, need to look at this with an open mind, and so should we.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. I'm at a point now. I think the thing that I'm afraid of with Daniel Jones is that most quarterbacks that are going into that year 4 already at a point where they haven't quite shown that they could be the franchise. Look, he had a great rookie year, in my opinion. That was phenomenal. That's exactly what he needed to do. What we would have wanted after that was a step forward, of course. He hasn't been lucky. He's been given a crappy deck of cards, a lousy team, lousy supporting cast. He lost Shermer after year 1, who, although I didn't think was a very good coach, he was very good for Jones' development. I do feel bad for him. I'm not sitting here thinking that he's gotten all the best luck there is. But then at the same time, Truth, in my opinion, there's certain things that he does that I don't are signs that he may not have succeeded to the extent we would have needed him to be an elite quarterback. Staring down the receivers is a huge issue. He's mobile in terms of doing that. When he gets running, very hard to stop him. I don't think he's very good in the pocket, though. I don't think he's got good awareness. And because of this, I'm at a side. I would love for Daniel Jones to prove me wrong. Everybody on Twitter right now, mark my words. I'd love to eat my words with a fork. That I'm telling you right now that I do not think Daniel Jones is going to prove to be the guy. But I'm more than happy, like I said, to eat those words with a fork. I want him to prove me wrong. I want him to seal the deal. I want him to prove that he's a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, and I want to see him lead this team and be that guy. Until then, we will have periodic New York Giants quarterback talk shows between me and Truth. We're going to talk about the quarterback prospects. And Truth, unlike last year, we got some good quarterbacks to talk about, don't we?
Yes, we do. I think this class is going to be better than last year's class. Yeah, and again, it's so early right now. We're in September, so. But I did watch a few of the games and watch the highlights of the players that we're going to talk about today, the quarterbacks. And there were some good things and some, obviously, things that need to be fixed. And, again, these guys are all high-end prospects, and I'm sure that they're going to progress during the season as we move along. But I would like to add about Daniel Jones. I know that you want to see him succeed, but you just don't feel it. That you don't have that vibe in Daniel Jones. And you mentioned that he had such a good rookie season. That's what's keeping my hopes alive that he did flourish under that offensive system, and I think this new offensive system is going to give him a kickstart. He did derail when he had Jason Garrett's and Joe Judge. It was kind of hard. They kind of held him back, I guess, because of the horrible offensive line that he's always had. Never had a very good offensive line. And I think that with the new system, I think we're going to see changes. He looks much better this spring in the preseason games than he has before. But again, it's the real games that count. So this coming week coming up against the Titans is going to be a big test.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, we can't write off or confirm Jones week 1, but we can definitely see after 4 games, what the progression is looking like from there. By that point, we'll probably be talking on our next episode about the quarterbacks.
Right.
Real quick, just want to shout out the fans. Tudo, you're always here. Massive salute. Tudo, we appreciate you. This is like last second. I know it's late in Italy. Thank you for being on. Mark Thompson, thank you for tuning in, man. As always appreciate you being on. All right, let's talk about the first guy. This is the dude that everybody wants to talk about, right? Because of last night's performance. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, last night's performance. No, not last night. I'm getting Florida and Florida State confused. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Saturday's performance against Utah. Anthony Richardson. Listen, I watched that game, and he played very impressive football to the point where, obviously if he can replicate that throughout the season, he's the kind of guy that I would like sticking around. I mean, no doubt about it. He's definitely going to be a top prospect. When I watch him play, at least with that game, and I watched 2021 too. Unfortunately not during 2021, but I really clearly had to do some homework on this guy because he proved against a very difficult team that he has an ability to make plays when needed. His movement in the pocket was absolutely phenomenal. Utah is not an easy defense. He also did some odd things in the pocket too, where it's like, I don't know if I've ever seen it done before. He did a pump fake and jumped in midair, and he kind of used his mind to throw these dudes off. I want to see that because that's something that Mahomes does. It's so special and so unique is that ability to really keep these plays alive. That's the stuff that we look for. Some of the things I don't like, he had some big plays. A lot of those plays, though, were, shorter routes that ended up getting a lot of yard after catch. It's a little bit difficult to evaluate, how, try to use those numbers to justify him. But the one thing is his accuracy with the mid to deep ball it needs some work. I'm hoping that gets improved throughout the season. He does good reads, though. He does an excellent job of reading the field. Those are my opinions. Truth. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, just to piggyback on that, he for a guy his size, I did watch the highlights of that game. He's very mobile. I mean, even if 106 yards, and usually when you see a quarterback who runs pretty well, he's usually a little bit smaller, but he's a big boy. He's not a little guy. 6'4", 232. That's what it shows on his stat sheet. I agree with you about his throws, and I think that's more about footwork. And I think Kurt Warner, ironically, talked about things he sees in a quarterback, and footwork is one of them. And I think with Richardson, I think that's mainly his footwork that limits him in those pass ranges that you were talking about. He does have great presence when he's on the field. He does sense pressure. I did notice that with him. He didn't stay in the pocket too long, and he does extend the play, which is nice to see, especially if your team doesn't have a great offensive line. Giants right now. It's going to benefit him and the team when he's mobile and extends the plays.
Yeah, no, completely with you on that. Again, like we said, the extending play component. I mean, if he can replicate that, that's what makes him such a likable player.
Mm-hmm.
Now look, that was one game. People talked about him a little bit after last year, but not so much. And people got to keep that in mind a little bit. I mean, Twitter was, I would have swore half of Giants Nation thought that this guy was, the guaranteed lock.
It's one game. Come on, guys. Yeah. One game.
Yeah. One game. Now, granted, if he has 2 or 3 of those games in the first half of the season, I get it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I completely get it. Because Florida's about to play some garbage teams coming up. Well, actually, no, not next week.
They play Kentucky, right?
But yeah, no, they got to play Kentucky this week. So I don't know when Florida gets their scrub game. I'm trying to figure out, when are they playing?
No, but he's got a good schedule. He's in the SEC schedule, so he'll be playing some good teams, right?
Yeah, they just played Utah. They should have to play somebody that sucks, right? I mean, Alabama always seems to get 3 scrubs a year. So, Giants fans, let's let him settle in on this one a little bit. Obviously, on Twitter, he moved up on everyone's mock boards, and rightfully so. But again, very impressive game for, a big game. That's what we like to see. We like to see these players shine against those elite teams and not just have, their highlight clips for when they're playing, Akron and Toledo and whatnot.
Right. And keep in mind, he threw for under 200 yards.
For sure.
I think what impressed a lot of people was his mobility. I mean, the way he can run the football, and he's a strong kid. So like that play you mentioned, him jumping up, and the defender should have wrapped his arms, but he was strong enough not to take that hit and still continue on with the play.
Yep. All right. Why don't we move on to our next guy? We went over the most, the hot topic guy of the week. Let's move on to my personal favorite, Truth, and I'd love to hear your opinions on him too. Will Levis.
Mm-hmm.
What I liked about watching him so much is, one of the things that I look for with these quarterbacks is, their ability to elevate the program. It's a little tough to tell at times, but, Truth and I were talking about it. There seems to be this myth because of Daniel Jones. People are saying that, well, we got to do quarterback. Of course, he's not going to succeed. I call BS on that. Truth, BS on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's just go through the list right now. Mahomes went to Texas Tech. Good football school. Every now and then have some pretty good teams. Not a great one. They're not going to the college football playoffs anytime soon. Josh Allen played at Wyoming. That is not a good program. In fact, not only they're not a Power 5 team, they generally suck in that conference that they play. Wyoming's a bottom barrel program. They played good football when they were there. And you saw with a lot of those games that he played in college, and why I liked them a lot back then, was, he always found ways to make plays, keep drives alive, and win games. I still don't think Wyoming was winning 10 games a year, but they're a formidable team for the level of competition they had to play. Another thing, I want to talk about this, Truth, is, because Carson Wentz dealt with the same thing. They're always saying, well, they're not playing against great defenses, so how can we really get an evaluation? Just remember something. They're also not playing with great offensive weapons. They're not playing with guys that are going in the first round. They're playing with guys that'll be lucky if they get an undrafted free agency signing. What you want to see, of course, at that lower level is that they're dominating a little bit more. Because the Malik Willis last year, one of the things that Craig pointed out, and he was absolutely right, was Malik Willis didn't really, he wasn't putting up crazy stats.
No.
And that's something against him. If he was putting up 5,000 yards that year, well, then you say, okay, this is, this is something special. But that was one of the knocks against him. Will Levis of Kentucky. Kentucky was not very good of a football school. Last few years, they've gotten it together. They're pretty damn good. And part of that is because I think he's a great quarterback. What I love about Will Levis is that, he has deep ball ability. He has accuracy. He has mobility in the pocket. And he's also, he keeps plays alive, and his reading of the receivers is fantastic. In my opinion, he's got all those mechanics that I really want out of a quarterback. Is he Peyton Manning of college? No, I don't think so, but he's my personal favorite. What are your thoughts, Truth?
I like him as well. He's definitely has that makeup to be in a pro-ready offense. He looks good in the pocket. He looks good when he's rolling out, very accurate when he throws, whether he's in a pocket or in motion. Another kid who's got good size to him, which is nice to see. He does run only when he has to. They don't have plays designed for him to run, but if the pocket collapses, he will tuck it and go. So he's not afraid to do that. And he's got very high competitiveness in him. So when I read about him, his ethic when he works and practice, the coaches talk about this kid. very high intensity kind of player, and that's a nice ingredient to have. And I have a couple of things. It's funny when you read up on people, what you find out about them. This kid likes to. This is kind of weird. He likes to eat bananas with the peel on. Okay, with the peel still on, and he likes to put mayonnaise in his coffee. So that's something that I read when I was doing research on him.
Which is kind of weird. On my mock board, we're talking mayonnaise in the coffee, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. But I do like his makeup, and we'll see how he progresses as the year goes on. If he gets too good, man, he won't be there for the Giants if the Giants are looking for a quarterback.
Yeah, and real quick, Mark Thompson, Giants fans, if you don't follow him on Twitter, he's relatively new. He only joined several months ago, but he's been a fan of the show for a very long time. Be sure to follow him because his opinions on this are always very well elaborated. And compared to most people on Twitter, I mean, I give him a follow. But we have talked about Levis before, and I know that Mark is a pretty big fan of him as well. And again, it's those mechanics that we see in him is why we get a good feel about him. What we want to see, obviously, is that he can replicate and even take another step forward this year. And they can be the guy. But you are right, Truth. I mean, if he has a fantastic year again, I mean, he's off the board.
Yeah.
But, look, I mean, if the Giants find that, they need to trade up for an elite quarterback, they might have to do it. I mean, if it's a year where you need a quarterback and you need the guy, you got to go for the guy. I know we lose draft capital, but Truth, let's be real here. I would have traded, the middle couple years of Gettleman's first round picks for an elite quarterback. I'm sure you would have as well.
Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind is Justin Herbert. The year he didn't come out, he was supposed to come out a year earlier. I fully believe the Giants were going to take him. I really do.
Me too.
But he decided to stay in school for whatever reason he wanted to, which is fine. But the following year, he got picked earlier, and the Giants they already drafted their quarterback, right? They had Jones. After his rookie year, they felt they had the quarterback. So, it's easier looking at crystal ball now and say it was a mistake, but that life doesn't work that way.
Well, somebody had a very good point, and this is kind of like the unfortunate reality about football is the best thing that you could ever do in football is suck the year before a great quarterback comes out in the draft, and there is truth to that. I mean, if you want that's how teams improve is when, you have a horrible year like the Colts did in 1997, and then they have that first pick, and then it's married with that beautiful luck that a fantastic, Hall of Fame quarterback is there, right?
Yeah.
If the Colts went 3-13 in 1996, then Peyton Manning wouldn't have been there in 1997, right? And the whole Colts not dynasty,
98, yeah,
but it would have never happened. But we'll kind of see what happens with that. I mean, Levis, based on last year, I wouldn't say he's probably going to be the number one pick right now, but he might be the quarterback taken.
Yeah. Again, it's too early.
Yeah, it's way too early. Why don't we move on to another guy that our dear friend Craig fell in love with? A little just minute spat the other day about it. Out of Boston College, Phil Jurkovec. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I don't really know. I'll be honest with you. I don't watch Boston College football that much because they're not very good. Not to say that what we just said, good quarterbacks can come from bad programs. Truth, what are your thoughts on him?
Well, he's the I think the guys we're going to talk about today, right now after 1 week, he's the one whose numbers, we have 6 guys today. He's number 6 on my board right now. He looks good. He's got good size to him. He throws a nice ball. Stays strong in the pocket. Stands strong in the pocket when he throws the football. Sometimes he forces it, which is evident of his stat line. I think he had 2 interceptions against Rutgers, who he's the only one of the 6 quarterbacks that lost the first week.
He's the only one, yeah.
He's the only one. But he does show some nice stuff. Very strong arm. And he's got good vision, but I think he sometimes forces it into the window there where maybe he shouldn't have. But I think that comes with time, learning, developing. So overall, he's got some good traits to him.
Yeah, he's got some good traits, but I kind of feel like, I mean, to me, he gives me the vibes that Daniel Jones does a little bit, and that's when the answers weren't there. And he has the ability to make big plays. We see it happen, but he's not consistently on every single play finding ways to keep plays alive, drive the ball downfield. If it's 3rd and 4 and his options aren't there, he's not necessarily running the pylon. He's collapsed in the pocket, doesn't really have that presence. Like you said, big arm, and he's got some accuracy there too. But I just feel like when you're Boston College and you're playing against a team like Rutgers, you got to do a little bit better of a job of finding ways to make plays happen. I know I said it already. It doesn't matter. I don't care where they play in college. I need to see some program elevation. And I would fully expect a quarterback from Boston College to be able to pick apart Rutgers defense a little bit better than Phil Jurkovec did the other day. And I felt the same way with his performance last year. He's got some things to improve on.
Yeah.
You have to make leaps forward. Right now, he's looking to me like a mid-round pick.
I agree. I mean, I see a day 3 pick actually right now.
A day 3 pick, okay.
Yeah, and that could change obviously, but I see day 3 pick right now.
Yep. No, fair enough. All right. Well, let's go to another big name right now. He's obviously he's going to put up the biggest numbers this year. We all know it. He's playing for a phenomenal program. Their offense, puts up 50 to 70 points every week, and it looks so freaking easy. CJ Stroud. Truth, let's talk about him a little bit. We were just talking. We were trying to think of good quarterbacks that came from elite programs. It's a little bit hard to think about. Let's go through the list. Peyton Manning, Tennessee. They were elite in the late 90s. No questions asked.
Yep.
Tom Brady played for Michigan, but in 1999 when he played, I mean, Michigan was statistically kind of like on par with like what their average was for the time. It wasn't anything phenomenal, hence the reason why he fell to 6th. They're still a good team, don't get me wrong, but they did lose to Michigan State, and I think everybody should know that. In 1999, the Nick Saban coached Michigan State Spartans beat the University of Michigan with Tom Brady that year, and they had Plaxico Burress too, but that's besides the point. Joe Burrow played for LSU. I'd say they're a big program, but actually LSU was not very good for the years leading up to that national title game. He really elevated that program in 2019.
Well, they had some great players in that year.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Again, player elevation is key here. My problem with Ohio State is I think if CJ Stroud goes down, the backup will come in and they'll probably win the exact same, if not one less amount of games as they would have with Stroud. Truth, I mean, do you feel like that might be the case here?
Yeah, that's the history of Ohio State. Their inconsistency or lack of any quarterbacks moving on to NFL and having successful careers. We've seen it most recently. Certain players who have done well in Ohio State become NFL players, and they don't really do anything. So there is some red flags on that, and I know some of the viewers who are going to watch this on Twitter are going to say you don't judge a guy by the team he plays, by the uniform, you judge the player. CJ Stroud does have some nice qualities about him, but I watched that game. That was the only game I watched from start to finish, and he did okay.
He did okay. Yeah, he had a decent game.
Yeah, he did. I wasn't going, oh my gosh, look at this guy. He's, I wasn't like, he didn't give me that wow kind of feeling that you should have when you're watching a guy who's right now arguably going to be could be the first guy picked in the draft, either him or someone else we haven't spoken about yet. Yeah.
And one of the issues too is, I mean, like that Notre Dame game, he when he plays crappy, and he lit up Michigan State last year, I'll just say it, and he did it. It sucked to watch. But when he's playing against these better teams like Michigan and Penn State and Oregon, you look at the best games, the most challenging ones that Ohio State's had the last 2 years, he does play worse, which is expected. You should play worse, but he's playing borderline like average. And remember something, he's had like a few incredible first-round talent wide receivers.
Oh, my gosh. Just throw it down the field and catch it. That's kind of what they do. And they also, when they play these inferior teams, they just load up the scoreboard. They just keep throwing the football, padding the stats. So you really can't look at stats so much because it's really not really telling what they are.
And Sarah, like you said, Notre Dame, yes, he did not have a very good first
half. That's true. Yes, Sarah, that's a very good point. The first half, he did not look good.
and stats are very deceiving for Ohio State because when you do these dump off they have a tendency to do dump off passes and these short, quick slants that go for a lot of yards. I mean,
right after the catch,
it's insane. And again, look, he's playing for a great program. Ohio State's schedule is just, well, all right, I'll give them Notre Dame. That's a pretty tough team. But throughout the year, until they play Michigan, they're not playing against anybody that's even close to them in talent. And I think that affects, look, I mean, because when he goes to the NFL next year, he's going to deal with less time. He's going to deal, the pocket time that he gets is absolutely incredible. He's not going to have that when he goes to the NFL. It's going to be a lot bigger than that. The other thing, look, we've talked so much about like the negative aurors around this guy. Let me be real about what he's good at: accuracy, distance, and that's what Ohio State recruited him for.
Yeah, good on. Yeah,
he could throw it accurately. He can get it right in the window. But he's, the problem is, and this is one of the most frightening things, is that his first read is always there.
Yeah, that's a great point. He never has to check off because he has such talented wide receivers to get open. So his first look is usually his throw.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for any history of him being able to like look at three guys and have to dance around the pocket a little bit and make those crazy throws. He hasn't really had to do that either. He's athletic. Yeah. I'm sure maybe he can move around the pocket very well. It's very tough finding that video though.
Yeah, didn't he run for 100 yards that game or no?
Yeah, he did. But, my problem with running, with quarterbacks running in general is like, look, Jones is a very good runner, but it doesn't make him a good quarterback. What I want to see is that they can get out of the pocket and move around the pocket. That's more important to me.
Yeah, extend it, right.
Yeah, run down the center of the field. A lot of quarterbacks in football do that now. But Jones is elite at that. I think he's one of the best in the leagues at being able to do that. The draws, like the fake draw, and then you sprint around to the side. Stroud can do that. But yeah, I have a feeling that he would eventually become the same. He would have the same fate as the other quarterbacks for the other Ohio State quarterbacks. Yo, New York Giants Rush, home of the Giants podcast. How are you tonight? Ready to stop the Titans? Let's go. Hit the like button to show support. Brand I don't know who this is. This is great. Bird Gang 31's channel. Bird Gang 31. Yeah. Hey.
Oh, Bird Song guys.
Love
Bird Guy.
Love it. Sam Rose, what do you got? Stroud's arm strength is overrated. It's not everything, but that narrative is of having.
He doesn't have a hose.
Yeah. Look,
he's got a good arm. He's right, Sam. He's got a good arm. It's not like he's got a cannon on his right shoulder, Yeah, but accuracy, he does have it. But again, if the first read's always option, it's going to be very challenging for him to be able to translate into the NFL. Yeah.
In your tighter constrictions. So I am not. That is why I hold back on Stroud a little bit. What would he have to do, Truth, in your opinion, to solidify like that point where it's like, he could be the guy, even with the pocket time. What does he have to do?
Well, look. He's going to have a good season. Playing for a team like that, he's going to put up good numbers. What does he have to do? He's going to have to prove it once he gets drafted, really, because he is going to be carrying that stigma of Ohio State quarterbacks not succeeding in the NFL, and now it's going to be up to him to break that chain. Really, there's nothing bad he's going to do in college because he's going to have good numbers. As a quarterback for Ohio State, he's going to put up such nice numbers. Again, he could be Heisman Trophy candidate, but he's going to have to prove it.
I have no doubt he's going to
probably, yeah. He's going to have some competition, obviously, and just like every year, someone's going to come out from nowhere and be another candidate. But he's going to have to, when he gets drafted, and of course he will be drafted, he's going to have to prove it in training camp and as he goes and moves forward as an NFL player that yes, an Ohio State quarterback can succeed in the NFL.
Right. He'll have to be kind of like that prototype leader of it.
Yeah.
Again, it's actually a tough position for him to be in. I'm sure when these guys sign on to Ohio State, it's like, I'm going to get good protection. I'm going to look great out there on the field. I'm going to be equipped with good coaching, good players, and they're going to help elevate me. And to an extent, that's completely true. I get it. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit hurtful in a sense when they translate to the NFL. Because a lot of those quarterbacks weren't able to do it. Okay. I think we talked enough about Stroud. We're obviously going to keep an eye on him this season. Well, I was talking to another guy who I had no idea about last year, Tyler Van Dyke.
Miami, yep.
So interesting story about this guy. So Miami had a quarterback last year, Giants fans, with the last name of King. He was a very high prospect going into the season of 2021. After they lost to Michigan State, wink, wink, they took King out, and Tyler Van Dyke came in, and Tyler Van Dyke has been doing a pretty good job ever since. I think there's some things that Van Dyke does that just don't wow me in a sense of like his arm strength, his accuracy. I don't know how well he's going to translate behind the offensive line. Going through the reads though, pretty good. I think he's got some athletic ability. But what are your thoughts on him, Truth? I'll be honest, Giants fans. I got to do a little bit more of a look to him. Craig likes him. A lot of other Giants fans do. I need to do a little bit more homework.
Yeah, and as do I. I did watch the highlights of that game. I didn't get a chance to watch the game, but what I noticed about that is that they played a less inferior team, and I think the team, what was they called it? Bethune Cookman.
Bethune Cookman.
Yeah, yeah. So and they actually scored 70 points on them. But if you look at Van Dyke's stat line, he only threw 16 times total under 200 yards. So it's not like he was trying to run the score by throwing. They just ran the ball throughout the game, and he didn't really get a lot of attempts. So I couldn't really get a fair assessment on him, but he does look like he has a good arm. He's another kid with good size. He's pretty big guy, pretty solidly built at 232 at 6'4", and he looked good. He looked good in the pocket, and he did run the ball when he needed to. So he looked okay. I just want to see more of him.
I'm with you. One of the things that I do like from last year in his performance is that early on, I mean his play progressed very steadily as the season went on with Miami, and they beat some pretty formidable teams in the ACC. They beat Pitt, that was loaded with talent. And I think they beat another ranked team. I'm trying to remember who it is. And they finished out with the last 6 games that Miami played. It's pretty friggin' good, and he played good football during that stretch. So again, hoping to see him replicate that. I wouldn't be opposed to it. He finds ways to win. If he can continue to do that this year, I love it. I love me a quarterback that you can have a crappy game early on, but at the the last quarter, you pull together and you get out. You find a way to win. Because Mahomes is very good at that. He did that against us last year. He did it against the Giants, right?
Yeah.
He had a mediocre game, but he found ways to win. I'm accepting of that. But of course, they have to have some games in between there that they're blowing the competition out of the water. It can't be every week.
Right. So he's the kind of guy we want to keep an eye on and see how he progresses. Hopefully, he get more throws in. Show off his arm and talent. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Grandizer 12. Do you guys have any Titans content creators to do a pregame show with this week? I can recommend one if you need one. Grandizer 12. Thank you for bringing it up. We're not having a Titans fan on, or any Titans content creators on this week. We would not be opposed to possibly doing a show on another Titan, a Titans content creator platform. We're always happy to do that. We've done that plenty of times. Me and Truth have together. But I think for tomorrow night, we're pretty much set with our lineup. So no need for then. But yeah, if they're having a platform or a show, let us know.
DM us.
Be on. Yeah,
absolutely.
Even though there's only a little bit of good golf playing weather out the rest of the year here in Chicago, Truth gets a little bit more time down there in the okay, well, let's talk about our last guy, Truth, and we'll let everybody go for the night. So Alabama. What's interesting is this: Alabama's history. We're going to talk about Bryce Young. Let me just say his name first. Alabama's history at quarterback was really crappy until about 2016. There seemed to be a transition in the NFL where it went from that ability, that possibility that you could have a defense-first football team like Alabama did in the early 2010s. And don't get me wrong, they still have typically one of the better defenses. And they did last year as well. But they're generally equipped now with Alabama's generally equipped with a pretty good quarterback. One that definitely goes in the higher rounds of the NFL draft. And And it's completely changed the game because it used to be an anomaly that Alabama would win championships with quarterbacks that you wouldn't even know the names of.
Yeah.
The game's changed. I think Alabama does, an okay job of producing quarterbacks for the NFL now compared to what's the story with those guys? It's a little bit more like because I'm thinking about the guy from Philadelphia, and then I'm thinking about to Tua.
Yeah, for Miami.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones.
Yeah, and Mac Jones, right? So that's a he's still got to. I guess that's a story with all three of those guys. Like they're still having to prove themselves right now, but they're looking a little bit more. It's looking a little bit more doable,
I
than
think
the
so.
Ohio State guys just going completely tanking the NFL.
Right.
But look, Bryce Young. I mean, he reminds me a lot. We were just talking about it, guys. Russell Wilson's, size-wise, Russell Wilson, that ability to move in the pocket as well. I think he's got good vision downfield. There's a couple things I'd like to see him improve on, including like the deep ball accuracy. I think he struggles with the same benefits that Ohio State quarterbacks are granted, meaning like, they're surrounded by all-star receivers now. But that said, they're going against better defenses than CJ Stroud has to. When you're playing SEC defense, it's nasty. I mean, these are the guys that are going top couple rounds for the most part. And he does excel in big games. I think he does. Every time they're playing one of those top 10, top 15 opponents, he has a good game, and he finds ways to win too. But I think there's still some things like with his strength and with the accuracy there that he can work on. Truth, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, I think in all the accuracy portion all stems with his footwork. Again, I'll reference Kurt Warner when you had the interview with the Giants guys. It's made some great points. He knows what he's talking about and how footwork is so important for a quarterback to be successful. And I think Bryce Young is a good football player. I think he definitely at this moment could go number one. Obviously depends who's picking number one. But usually the teams that's picking number one need a quarterback. So I do like this kid. He's got a lot of guts in him. He's a tough little competitor. If teams don't shy away from his size, which a lot of teams do, believe it or not, they value size a lot. Sometimes it's not the size of the man; it's the man. Look at like you mentioned Wilson. What a competitor he is.
Wilson, Breeze. Look, shorter quarterbacks succeed. Sometimes I see a guy like Kyler Murray, and maybe they're held back a little bit by the fact that by their height. We'd have to have a quarterback like that on the program to be like, look, well, how would that have helped your game if you were just a little bit taller? And I don't know what their answer would be, to be quite frank with you. There's been plenty of tall quarterbacks that have completely sucked.
That's right. All right. And there's guys who have been short of stature, like you just mentioned, future Hall of Famers, right? In Breeze and Wilson. They go into the Hall of Fame. So
absolutely. Look, these guys proved to get it done. I think Bryce Young, and again, I know some fans might be like, well, if you said, Stroud surrounded by too good talent, what's the difference with Young? I really think Young shines against harder to beat teams, to be quite frank. In tougher situations too. So there's more to fall in love with Bryce, in my opinion. Arm strength, there's only so many games where a quarterback's really going to have to make that bomb at the end of the game, right? We want to see it. We want to see Aaron Rodgers Hail Marys, which he executes on every single play. I don't know how he does it. Accuracy is something that's, definitely like, all right, tweak. If that can be tweaked, he's going number one overall.
Yeah. And he's a dual threat, right? He ran for over 100 yards.
Yes.
In the game. He's a dual threat. And, we don't want
to around.
Right. Look, when you get to the NFL, you really don't want to see a quarterback running too much because defenders love to hit the quarterback when he's outside of the pocket, So so that's something that, you can design plays for controlled running plays and just try to keep him safe. But he is a dual threat. He really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, look, here's the situation. We gave you our opinions, things that they got to work on throughout the season, all these quarterbacks, Van Dyke, Young, Stroud, Levis, Richardson. We're going to keep our eyes on these guys. We're going to hope that Daniel Jones succeeds. And look, if Daniel Jones is killing it this year, we may stop doing a show. We may not have to do this anymore. But until then, we'll check in every few weeks and just kind of see how these quarterbacks are progressing and see where they're at, and say, hey,
and it could change. The names could change. It could be somebody might jump in there, out of the blue.
We would have started last year, boys. That King guy from Miami. He would have been off the list by the fourth week.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm pulling for Jones because there's so many people, and that's your opinion. That's fine if you guys don't feel that way about him. But there's so many people who don't think he has what it takes, and I'm hoping, because I don't know the answer to this. I'm hoping that he proves them wrong. I really do.
I do too. I want Daniel Jones to make me my worth the fork. And again, nobody should want Jones to fail. Nobody should want it.
Yeah, if you're a Giant fan, you really shouldn't. That'd be kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly. But some people might be like, oh, just so we can move on for him. Hopefully he sucks. Look, I really don't want a situation at the end of the season where, Jones has played at a point, at a level where it's like 50% of the fans think he's it and 50% don't. That wouldn't be good. I'm hoping we just know. I'm hoping we just have a clear, confined answer.
Yeah, but what matters though is what Shane and what Dable think. That's what matters. And if he does fail, they got options. They could draft one, which Giant fans need to be patient. If we draft one, they could trade for one, which usually doesn't happen a lot in the NFL, or they can go for free agency. They'll have the cap space to do that, and I don't know who's available right now. A quarterback for next year. I have no clue. I haven't looked at that. So those are three options, but I think overall, I think they want him to succeed.
And absolutely. But nonetheless, Giants fans, again, need truth. Mark Thompson, real quick. There's a guy from Fresno State, Jake Hainer, I believe.
I'll look them up.
We'll track him throughout the season as well.
Yep, I'll check them out.
All right. Giants fans, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, take a look at our recent videos. We got a lot of content coming up. Interviewed Kurt Warner. Go to YouTube. Check it out. He had a lot of good insight on Daniel Jones, quarterback play in general, and, of course, his career as well. Hour and a half of content. Sorry we could break it up for you guys. But you know what? You rarely get to see that with a Hall of Fame quarterback, is them just talking their thoughts for an hour and a half. So check it out. Giants fans, thank you so much. Truth, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Have a good rest of your night. Hope you all had a good long weekend, and have a great week. Take care.
Take care, everyone.